The galaxy had many stories about the Zelther Dominion. Some called them rulers of the stars. Others called them the shadow that swallowed worlds for more than 300 years. Their fleets had moved from one star system to another, conquering every planet in their path. No one had stopped them. No one had even slowed them down. The Zelther did not believe in peace agreements. They gave every planet only two choices: surrender or be destroyed. Their technology was advanced, their armies disciplined, and their fleets endless. They had powerful battleships armed with energy cannons that could split a moon apart. They had small, fast attack crafts that could outrun anything chasing them. Every weapon, every ship, and every soldier worked together in perfect order. In the center of their power stood the High Commander, Varn Sol. He was known across the galaxy as a cold and calculating leader. His orders never changed once given, and he never forgave failure under his rule. The Dominion had grown larger than any empire before it. Even ancient star nations had bent their knees to him. That year, the Dominion's eyes turned toward a new target, a small star system called Helios 7. It was far from the main trade routes, a place few in the galaxy even noticed. The system had only one habitable planet, a blue and green world called Terra 5 by galactic maps. Dominion scouts reported that it was rich in water, minerals, and oxygen, making it a perfect addition to their growing empire. The High Commander reviewed the reports in his war chamber. His tall, dark armor reflected the light from the holo display as he listened to his fleet captains. No organized defenses, one captain reported. Only small orbital platforms and a few patrol craft. Another added, it will take less than 2 days to bring them into submission. Varn Sol's eyes narrowed. He had heard the same words many times before, and they had always been true. Then it shall be done, he said, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. Prepare the fleet. We move at dawn cycle. The Dominion fleet gathered at the edge of the system. Dozens of battleships, hundreds of cruisers, and swarms of smaller vessels floated in formation, their hulls black and sharp like blades against the stars. The fleet's flagship, the Iron Talon, stood at the center, its massive structure a symbol of the Dominion's unstoppable force. But among the reports from the scouts, there was one detail that most dismissed as unimportant. A lone warship had been detected near Terra 5. It did not match the design of any known local defense craft. The data suggested it was human in origin. The Dominion had heard of humans before, a young species, not yet widespread in the galaxy. They had no large empires, no vast fleets. To the Dominion, humans were just another primitive race still learning to survive in space. Shall we remove it before the main strike? One officer asked. Varn Sol waved his hand dismissively. It will flee when it sees us, if it stays. It will burn with the rest, far away, near the orbit of Terra 5. The human warship Resolute was already watching them. It was not a new ship. Its design was older compared to the smooth, gleaming lines of Dominion vessels. Its armor showed signs of repairs, and its weapons looked modest in size. But inside, its crew moved with quiet confidence. At the command center, Captain Marcus Hale stood by the main display, watching the incoming readings. His eyes were calm, his face steady. Around him, his officers worked at their stations, feeding him data from long-range sensors. They're bringing an entire invasion fleet, said Lieutenant Park, scanning the numbers in disbelief. I count at least 30 heavy battleships. Maybe more. Marcus did not look surprised. They've been doing this for centuries, he said. They expect us to surrender before they fire a shot. And will we? Park asked. The corner of Marcus's mouth moved in something that was almost a smile. No. The Resolute had been in the Helios 7 system for only 2 weeks, assigned to patrol routes far from the main human colonies. It had not expected to be the first and only human ship, standing between an empire and a planet full of civilians. But retreat was not in Marcus's plans. He knew the Dominion's record. They never stopped after taking one world. If Terra 5 fell, others would follow. The only chance to slow them down was here and now, when the Dominion fleet entered the system. They sent the usual message. The transmission came through in flawless standard language. This system is now under the rule of the Zelther Dominion. Lower your defenses and submit, or face destruction. Marcus listened to the words without changing his expression. Then he ordered his comms officer send a reply. What should I say, sir? Marcus's voice was steady, without anger or fear. Tell them 3 words. You will fail. The message was sent. On the Iron Talon, the Dominion officers received it with surprise. Some laughed, others looked confused. Only Varn's soul remained still, his eyes fixed on the image of the human ship. Destroy it, he ordered. The Dominion fleet began to move, dark shapes spreading across the stars like a tide. The Resolute stayed in position, its engines running, at low power, waiting. To the enemy, it must have looked like a stubborn insect waiting to be crushed. But Marcus knew his ship. He knew its strengths and weaknesses. The Dominion had numbers and firepower, but they fought in predictable ways. Relying on overwhelming force, humans fought differently. They adapted, they improvised, and they refused to give up even when the odds were against them. As the first wave of Dominion ships closed in, Marcus gave his crew their orders. Stay sharp. We hit where it hurts. Make them wonder why we're still here. The officers nodded. There was no need for long speeches. Every person on the Resolute understood what was at stake. The Dominion had never faced a human warship in open battle before. By the end of this day, they would. And somewhere deep inside the endless confidence of the Zelther Dominion, a small crack was about to appear. The first sign that their age of effortless conquest might be ending. The Dominion fleet moved through the Helios 7 system like a black storm. Their ships were sharp-edged shadows gliding across the starlit void, each one a machine built only for war. They had come to take another world, and to them, this would be as easy as breathing. But among the planets and drifting rocks of the system, one human warship stood in their path. It did not hide. It did not run. The Resolute remained where it was, a single vessel holding its ground as the dark wave of the enemy approached. To the Dominion, it was almost amusing. The High Commander had seen many last defenders before. Some fled as soon as they saw his fleet. Others tried to fight and were swept aside like dust. Never once had a single ship stopped him from taking a planet. On the bridge of the Iron Talon, Varn's soul studied the lone human craft through a live feed. His officers gave reports one after another. It is smaller than our standard cruisers. Its hull is reinforced but outdated. Weapon capacity is limited. Every fact suggested that the Resolute was no threat, but Varn's soul did not make the mistake of underestimating any enemy completely. He leaned forward slightly in his command chair. Is it alone? Yes, Commander. No other human vessels detected in this sector, replied an officer. Varn's soul turned his gaze to the star map. They have chosen to die here. On the Resolute, Captain Marcus Hale stood at the central display table. The holographic projection showed the incoming fleet. Red markers spread across the screen like drops of blood. His crew watched the readings in tense silence. Lieutenant Park looked up from her console. Sir, they're within long-range targeting distance. Marcus nodded. Hold position. They'll see that as weakness, said another officer. Good, Marcus replied. Let them think that. The Resolute had faced smaller pirate fleets before, even hostile mercenaries. But nothing like this. The Dominion was a machine of war, and machines followed patterns. Marcus knew that if he could break those patterns, even for a moment, he could turn the enemy's confidence into doubt. The Dominion sent a second transmission, their voice deep and commanding. Human vessel, this is your only warning. Power down your weapons, shut down your engines, and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and you will be destroyed. The words echoed across the bridge. Marcus looked at his comms officer. Send the reply. The officer asked. Same as before, sir. Marcus gave a single nod. 3 words. You will fail. When the message reached the Iron Talon, the officers exchanged glances. Many were offended. Others smirked at what they saw as foolish bravery. Varn's soul remained unreadable. Bring the first strike group forward. Remove this ship from my sight. A squadron of fast Dominion attack craft broke formation and sped toward the Resolute. Each was armed with energy, cannons capable of cutting through a warship's armor in seconds. On the Resolute, alarms sounded. Red lights flashed across the bridge. Marcus stood tall, his voice steady. Target their lead ships. Fire when ready. The Resolute's cannons roared to life. Bright lances of energy streaked through space, striking one of the approaching attack craft. It exploded in a flash of light, scattering fragments into the void. The rest of the Dominion craft swerved, adjusting their formation. Another shot from the Resolute struck a second ship, damaging its engines and sending it drifting off course. But the remaining attackers pressed on. "Brace for return fire," shouted Lieutenant Park. The Resolute shuddered as energy bolts slammed into its shields. The shield display flickered, dropping from full strength to 70% in seconds. Marcus gave quick orders. "Evasive pattern Delta. Keep them guessing." The Resolute banked sharply, engines flaring bright. The ship twisted between incoming fire, returning shots with precise aim. It was not the strongest ship in the galaxy, but under Marcus's command, it moved like a fighter rather than a heavy warship. On the Iron Talon, Varn Sol leaned forward in his chair. "Interesting," he murmured. "They move with skill." One of his captains spoke. "Shall we send more ships?" Varn Sol's gaze remained locked on the tactical display. "No. Let the first group finish it. I want to see how long they last." The fight continued. The Resolute weaved through the enemy's squadron, targeting weak points. It avoided direct confrontations, striking quickly before pulling back. Within minutes, another Dominion craft was disabled, drifting without. "Power 3 down," reported Lieutenant Park. "But shields are at 50%. Marcus nodded. "We'll make them pay for every shot." Inside the Dominion squadron, frustration began to grow. The human ship should have been destroyed already, yet it kept dodging, hitting, and vanishing into blind spots. The Dominion pilots were trained for overwhelming force, not for an enemy that refused to fight their way. Then it happened, a mistake. The Dominion craft tried to box in the Resolute, but their movements left them lined up perfectly. Marcus saw the opening instantly. "Target both. Fire now." Twin energy beams burst from the Resolute, piercing both ships in one strike. They erupted in brilliant explosions, lighting the dark space around them. On the Iron Talon, the tactical display flashed red as more ships went down. Varn Sol's eyes narrowed. "This is no ordinary captain," he said quietly. "This one fights with thought, not fear." The surviving Dominion craft retreated toward the main fleet, their attack broken. The Resolute held position again, its armor scorched and shields weakened, but still operational. On the bridge, the crew let out small breaths of relief. "They're pulling back," Park said, sounding almost surprised. Marcus didn't relax. "They're not done. That was only their first step. Then why withdraw?" "To test us," Marcus replied. "And now they'll come with everything they have." He turned to his tactical officer. "Send a full systems check. We need every weapon ready, every shield emitter stable." This was just the start. In the war chamber of the Iron Talon, Varn Sol stood at the center of the holo display. Round him, his officers waited for his next order. "This captain has earned my attention," he said. "Bring the second wave. We will see if his skill survives against true force." The Dominion fleet began to shift, forming a massive spearhead formation. At the tip was the Iron Talon itself, leading the charge. The message was clear. The Dominion would not be embarrassed by a single human ship. But Marcus Hale had no plans to let them pass. The Resolute adjusted its position, preparing for the storm that was coming. Every officer on board knew the odds, but none showed fear. The battle for Terra 5 had truly begun. The space between the Resolute and the Dominion fleet became a silent killing ground. The second wave was coming, larger and deadlier than the first, from the bridge. Marcus Hale could see the enemy formation stretching across the stars. It looked like a dark wall moving forward, slow but unstoppable. "They're coming in tight formation," reported Lieutenant Park. "At least 15 cruisers and 30 smaller craft. The Iron Talon is in the center." Marcus studied the display. Iron Talon was huge, a mountain of armor and weaponry. To face it directly would mean certain destruction. But Marcus wasn't planning on a direct fight. "Helm," he said, "bring us toward the asteroid belt. Keep our profile low, tactical. Start mapping every large rock in that belt. I want firing positions marked before they even get close." The crew moved quickly. The Resolute's engines flared, and the ship began sliding toward the thick cluster of ancient asteroids. Each one was a giant piece of space rock, some as large as small moons, slowly drifting in their endless orbit around the system's star. From the Iron Talon, the move looked like a retreat. One Dominion officer smirked. "They're running for cover, Commander." Varn Sol's expression didn't change, or they're making the cover into a weapon. "Follow them carefully. Do not assume this human fights like the others." As the Dominion ships entered the asteroid field, the battle began. The Resolute emerged from behind the spinning rock and fired a concentrated volley at the lead cruiser. The beams tore into its shields, collapsing them before the second shot punched through the armor. The cruiser's engines exploded, sending debris spinning into the void. Before the Dominion could react, the Resolute was gone again. Sliding behind another asteroid, "Track them," barked the Dominion captain. "They're using the rocks to break our targeting locks." Another officer replied. The Resolute struck again, this time from above. Cutting through one of the smaller craft, the Dominion formation began to break apart as captains tried to spread out to hunt the human ship on the Resolute's bridge. Marcus kept his voice calm. "Never fire from the same place twice. Use the field. Make them chase us." The crew obeyed. Each attack came from a new angle, from the shadow of a massive asteroid, from beneath a cluster of smaller rocks, even using the light of the star to blind enemy sensors. Varn Sol watched his tactical display with growing interest. This was not random chaos. The human was striking at weak points, forcing his fleet to move exactly where he wanted them. Signal the flanking groups, Varn Sol ordered. Cut them off from the far side of the field. But Marcus had already predicted such a move. He ordered the Resolute to dive deeper into the field, where the rocks were denser and more dangerous. Larger ships like the Dominion cruisers would struggle to navigate without slowing down. But the Resolute, smaller and more agile, could slip through gaps that seemed to narrow for a warship of its size. The Dominion followed, and that was when the traps began. The Resolute's gunners targeted loose asteroid fragments, blasting them into sudden storms of rock. These clouds of debris smashed into pursuing Dominion ships, damaging hulls and forcing them to break formation. At one point, the Resolute fired on a massive boulder, splitting it into two spinning halves. A Dominion craft tried to slip between them, but the halves slammed shut, crushing the smaller ship instantly. 3 more down, Park reported. Shields holding at 60%, Marcus allowed himself a small breath. "Good. But don't get comfortable. They'll adapt," and they did. The Dominion's smaller fighters began darting into the field, ignoring the cruiser's slower pace. Fast and heavily armed, they swarmed toward the Resolute. The ship's turrets spun rapidly, firing at the incoming wave. But there were too many to hit all at once. The Resolute's shields flickered as enemy fire struck from multiple angles. The ship shuddered, alarms blaring, shields down to 40%. Portside armor is taking heavy hits. Marcus gripped the edge of the command table. "Helm, take us through Gap 12. Now." The Resolute shot forward, engines roaring. The gap between two asteroids was so tight that the ship's hull scraped rock on both sides, leaving trails of glowing fragments. The fighters tried to follow, but 2 of them collided and exploded in the narrow space. Emerging from the other side, the Resolute found itself in a temporary pocket of open space. Marcus saw an opportunity. "Target the rear cruisers. Fire everything we have." The ship's main cannons fired in unison, striking one cruiser's engines and causing a chain reaction. The explosion lit up the asteroid belt, and the shockwaves sent nearby fighters tumbling out of control. For a brief moment, the battlefield was silent except for the hum of the Resolute's systems. Then the Iron Talon itself entered the field. The massive flagship moved with slow, deliberate power. its shields glowing as it brushed aside smaller rocks. Its forward guns began to fire, not at the Resolute, but at the asteroids themselves, blasting apart the human captain's cover. They're clearing the field, Park realized. Marcus's eyes narrowed. They're making it open space so they can use their numbers. The Resolute was still outnumbered and outgunned. Staying in the field would soon be too dangerous. Marcus had to think ahead. Helm, he ordered. Prepare a slingshot maneuver around the largest asteroid. Tactical. Lock onto their flanking group, the one on our starboard side. The ship accelerated, swinging round the giant rock in a wide arc. The maneuver pulled them directly behind the flanking Dominion group, catching them off guard. Fire. The Resolute's cannons cut through two ships before they even knew they were targeted. A third tried to turn but collided with a drifting chunk of asteroid. On the Iron Talon, one of Varn Sol's captains looked shaken. They're cutting us down, Commander. We've lost 8 ships in less than 30 minutes. Varn Sol's voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. And yet, they are alone. Alone cannot win forever. Keep pressing. Their shields will not hold. He was right. On the Resolute, warning lights flashed. Shields at 20%, Park called out. Weapons overheating. Marcus took a deep breath. We've done enough for now. Pull back toward the planet, make them follow us. The more we drag them out, the more time we give for Terra 5 to prepare. The Resolute began a controlled retreat, still firing when possible but avoiding direct hits. The Dominion ships followed, their formation messy and their confidence shaken. For the first time in centuries, the Zelther Dominion had been forced to adapt to an enemy they could not crush in minutes. The first clash had ended, but the war for the Helios 7 system was only beginning. The Dominion fleet followed the Resolute toward Terra 5, their engines burning bright against the black of space. To them, it was only a matter of time before the human ship's shields failed, and its hull was torn apart. But Captain Marcus Hale had no intention of letting the fight become a simple race of firepower. On the bridge of the Resolute, the crew worked in silence, each officer focused on their tasks. The display screen showed the Dominion ships in pursuit, spread out enough to avoid collisions, but still too close to break formation. They're keeping steady speed, reported Lieutenant Park, not pushing too hard. Marcus studied the tactical map. They think we're running. Let's make them believe it even more. He ordered the engines to fluctuate, speeding up in bursts and then slowing down slightly, just enough to make it seem like the Resolute was struggling to maintain full power. The Dominion's forward groups began to close the gap. That should pull them in, Marcus said quietly. On the Iron Talon, Varn Sol watched the human ship's movements with interest. They are slowing at times, he observed. Possible engine strain. One of his captains smiled. We can overtake them soon. Varn Sol didn't smile back. Do not underestimate this captain. He has already made fools of our forward groups. He leaned forward. But we will tighten the net. Signal the side wings to move ahead and cut off their path to the planet. Marcus expected this. He had counted on it. The side wings, moving faster than the main fleet, would try to intercept him before he reached the planet's defensive range. That was exactly what he wanted. Tactical, he said. Mark the asteroid fragments from the earlier battle. Can we still track them? Yes, sir. The officer replied. They're drifting toward the side wings path. Good. We're going to herd them straight into that debris field. The Resolute adjusted course slightly, angling toward the drifting remains of the earlier fight in the asteroid belt. The broken rocks were mixed with wreckage from destroyed Dominion ships, sharp fragments of armor, loose power cells, and twisted metal. The Dominion side wings moved in fast pursuit, eager to catch the human ship. They didn't notice that the path ahead was littered with hazards. When the first Dominion cruiser entered the debris field, the Resolute opened fire, not on the ship itself, but on nearby wreckage. The blast sent a rain of sharp fragments crashing into the cruiser's shields. Draining them quickly, another volley from the Resolute targeted a drifting power cell, which exploded with enough force to damage two enemy ships at once. From the Iron Talon, the view was clear. The human ship was using the remains of the earlier battle as a weapon. Varn Sol's eyes narrowed. Pull the side wings back before they lose more ships. But it was too late. By the time the surviving side wing ships pulled out of the debris field, the Resolute had slipped past them, closer to Terra 5. On the bridge of the Resolute, there was no cheer. Marcus knew that every victory was only temporary in this kind of battle. They'll regroup, he said, and they'll come with more force next time. We need to keep moving, Park frowned. Sir, our shields are at 45% and weapons are running hot. We can't take another long exchange without repairs. Marcus nodded. Then we don't give them one. We fight where they're weakest. The Resolute moved toward the edge of a small gas cloud between the Dominion fleet and Terra 5. The cloud was dense enough to interfere with long-range scanners, and its charged particles could confuse targeting systems. The Dominion hesitated to follow. Gas clouds could hide traps, and Varn Sol knew it. He wants us to come in blind, one captain said. Varn Sol's voice was low but firm. Then we blind him as well. Fire iron burst into the cloud. Flush him out. Blue-white flashes lit up the edges of the cloud as the Dominion ships launched their iron weapons. The burst ripped through the gas, shaking the Resolute. But Marcus had already moved deeper inside, using the cloud's currents to mask his position. Inside the cloud, visibility was low, but Marcus used short-range sensors to find small clusters of drifting ice. Firing at them created sudden bursts of freezing vapor that hit his ship even more. The Dominion ships entered the cloud, their formations breaking apart. That was when Marcus struck. The Resolute fired on one cruiser's rear engines, disabling it instantly. The explosion sent a wave of hot gas rushing through the cloud, scattering other Dominion ships. Another quick maneuver brought the Resolute alongside a smaller craft. A single burst from the human ship's cannons tore through its bridge, leaving it adrift. To down, Park reported. Marcus kept moving. We can't stay in here forever. Plot a path out, one that takes us right behind their main formation. The plan was risky. Exiting the cloud in the wrong spot could place them directly in the Dominion's guns, but if they came out behind the fleet, they could strike at vulnerable ships before the Iron Talon could turn to face them. The Resolute burst from the cloud at high speed, exactly where Marcus wanted. Ahead of them, the main Dominion formation was still moving toward Terra 5. Unaware that their enemy was now at their rear, target their supply ships, Marcus ordered. These ships carried ammunition, fuel cells, and repair drones. Without them, the Dominion fleet would lose much of its endurance. The Resolute's cannons lit up space, tearing through the unprepared supply ships, to wind up in flames before the others even began evasive maneuvers. On the Iron Talon, alarms rang. Our supply line is under attack. Varn Sol rose to his feet. Turn the fleet, now. The Dominion ships began to pivot, but the Resolute was already gone, slipping away toward the planet's shadow. Marcus had forced the massive fleet to waste precious time and resources without taking a full direct hit. In the quiet after the maneuver, the crew of the Resolute worked quickly to make emergency repairs. Burnt plating was replaced, shield emitters were recalibrated, and weapon systems were cooled. Park looked at the captain. Sir, we've delayed them, but how long can we keep doing this? Marcus glanced at the tactical display. As long as it takes. Every hour we hold them here is an hour the people on Terra 5 can prepare. That's our job. We fight smart, we stay alive, and we make them regret coming here. Far away, on the Iron Talon, Varn Sol stood at the viewing platform, watching the human ship's movements. This captain, he said quietly, he does not fight for victory alone. He fights to deny us what we want most. That makes him dangerous. The human strategy was working. For the first time in its long history, the Dominion was being dragged into a battle it could not end quickly. The Resolute was proving that one ship, in the right hands, could make an empire stumble. And Marcus Hale was not finished yet. The alien fleet drifted like shadows beyond the edge of Sol's reach, their enormous shapes blocking the stars. For weeks they had been silent, repairing their losses and gathering reinforcements from nearby systems. Admiral Kale of the Dravik Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, a towering vessel shaped like a crescent blade. His eyes narrowed as the human warship Helios remained motionless in the void. Sitting between Earth and the enemy, he could not understand it. Every other species had broken within hours of their first strike. Yet this lone human vessel had not only fought back but destroyed several of his cruisers. The Helios was damaged, but still radiated defiance. It was as if the humans were daring him to attack again. On the Helios, Captain Rain stood by the tactical display, his face lit by the faint blue glow of the holographic map. Round him, the crew waited for his next order. The enemy was regrouping, and he knew they would strike soon. Lieutenant Mira, his second in command, leaned closer. They are bringing in fresh ships, at least 20 more, if they attack all at once. We will not survive. Rand nodded but kept his voice steady. Then, we will not wait for them to attack. We move first. A ripple of surprise passed through the crew. Launching an offensive now would mean charging into the center of the enemy formation. It was risky, almost reckless. But Rain understood something about the Dravik that few did. They were predators that fed on fear. If he could strike fast, hit their command vessels, and disrupt their coordination, the rest of their fleet might hesitate. Within minutes, orders were given. The Helios's engines roared to life, sending the ship hurtling forward at full thrust. The crew strapped into their stations, feeling the hum of power build around them. The massive rail cannons rotated into position, their barrels glowing faintly from the intense charge. As the Helios closed in, alien ships shifted to meet it. The void lit with streams of plasma and kinetic fire. Shields flared and rippled under the assault. But the Helios pressed on, weaving between blasts with precision. The gunners worked in perfect sync, targeting weak points Rain had memorized from earlier battles. One of the Dravik command cruisers exploded in a sudden burst of light, debris scattering into the darkness. The shockwaves sent nearby ships spinning out of position. On the alien flagship, Admiral Kell's jaw tightened. They are not retreating, he growled. They are hunting us. Back on the Helios, damage reports came in. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4, several systems offline. But morale stayed unshaken every hit they took. They gave back twice as hard. The turning point came when the Helios's rail cannon delivered a direct strike to the enemies. Communications are without central coordination, the alien formation began to fracture. Smaller ships scattered, some retreating outright. Rain saw his chance. All weapons, target their flagship, he ordered. The bridge crew obeyed without hesitation. Missiles streaked toward the massive crescent ship. Turrets fired relentlessly, cutting through its armor. The Dravik flagships. Shields collapsed, and explosions rippled across its hull. Admiral Kell refused to yield, barking orders as his vessel began to fail. But the humans were relentless. With one final salvo, the Helios delivered a fatal blow. The flagship tore apart in a silent burst of light across the enemy fleet. The reaction was immediate. Ships turned and jumped to warp, abandoning the battle entirely. For the first time in generations, the Dravik Empire had been forced into retreat. On the Helios, the crew erupted in cheers, but Rain did not celebrate yet. He knew this victory was only the beginning. The Dravik would return with greater numbers, and next time, they would come for Earth itself. He turned to Mira. Signal command. Tell them the enemy is in retreat, and tell them to prepare every ship we have. The real war is about to begin. The Helios floated in the aftermath of battle, surrounded by the wreckage of alien warships and the silence of space. The humans had proven something no one else in the galaxy had believed, that they could fight back against an empire that had dominated the stars without challenge. And as long as the Helios stood, Earth would not fall. The stars burned cold and distant as the massive Dominion fleet gathered again. The Iron Talon, flagship of High Commander Varn Sol, loomed at the center, casting a dark shadow over the smaller ships around it. The fleet had taken losses, but their power was far from broken. They were ready for one final strike to crush the human defiance once and for all. In the command chamber of the Iron Talon, Varn Sol stood silently, staring at the glowing map of the Helios 7 system. His cold eyes reflected the small blue dot, the planet Terra 5, and a tiny blip near it, the human warship Resolute. This one ship has become a thorn in our side for too long, Varn's soul said quietly. Turning to his officers, we will end this today. Prepare the fleet for battle. No mercy, no hesitation. Round him, the officers nodded. The fleet was larger than ever. New ships arrived from the outer reaches. Fresh and fully armed, the Dominion was going to throw everything it had into this fight. Meanwhile, on the Resolute, Captain Marcus Hale was calm but alert. The ship's systems hummed steadily, shields at full strength after recent repairs, weapons ready. Lieutenant Park approached with the latest reports. Commander, the Dominion fleet is gathering. They have at least 50 ships now, including several dreadnoughts. They are preparing to attack in full force. Marcus nodded. Then we will meet them head-on. Signal Terra 5 to ready their defenses. We will not let this fleet reach the planet. The crew worked swiftly, running final checks. Every system, every weapon was ready for the battle to come. The Resolute moved to a position near Terra 5's orbit. The planet's surface glittered below, vast oceans, green forests, cities with lights shining in the twilight. This world, peaceful and unaware of the approaching storm, was why Marcus fought as the Dominion fleet advanced. The sky filled with the red glow of their engines. Their massive warships spread like a dark cloud, blotting out stars. The battle began with a thunderous roar. The Dominion unleashed waves of missiles and energy blasts. The Resolute shields flared, absorbing hit after hit. Marcus gave orders. Return fire. Target their forward squadrons first. Keep their smaller ships off us. The Resolute's cannons fired with precision. Enemy ships exploded in showers of sparks. Fighters swarmed, but the human ships' turrets rotated quickly, tracking and destroying them one by one. High above the fight, Varn's soul watched calmly. Concentrate on the flagship, he ordered. Destroy that ship, and the rest will fall. The Iron Talon moved into the fray, its massive guns blasting through asteroids and debris toward the Resolute. Marcus knew the flagship was the real threat. Divert all firepower to the Iron Talon, he commanded. We end this now. The Resolute unleashed its most powerful volleys. Energy beams and missiles struck the flagship's shields, causing deep cracks. Varn's soul snarled. Deploy boarding parties. Capture their ship or die trying. The battle turned brutal. The Dominion sent boarding shuttles, but the Resolute's crew was ready. Marines and engineers sealed bulkheads, fought off intruders with non-lethal force. To avoid hull damage, inside the ship, Marcus moved calmly, directing the defense. Hold the line. Protect the bridge at all costs. Outside, the fight raged. The Resolute twisted and darted through the battlefield, its shields flickering but holding. Suddenly, a brilliant idea struck Marcus. Prepare for the gravity slingshot maneuver around the nearby star, he ordered. It was dangerous. Flying close to a star's gravity well risked crushing the ship, but it could give them the speed and angle needed to strike the Iron Talons. Weak rear. The crew worked fast, engines roared as the Resolute dove toward the star. The Dominion fleet hesitated, unsure of what the human ship planned. As the Resolute swung around the star, its speed increased dramatically. With a roar, it shot behind the Dominion flagship. Fire everything, Marcus yelled. Missiles and energy beams struck the Iron Talon from behind. The flagship's shields failed instantly under the assault. Varn's soul screamed orders as the flagship took heavy damage. The flagship exploded in a cascade of fire and debris. The Dominion fleet faltered, stunned by the loss of their leader. Without command, their ships scattered in confusion. Marcus kept his ship steady, pressed the advantage, pushed them back. The Resolute fired on retreating cruisers and fighters, forcing them to withdraw from the system. After hours of battle, the Dominion fleet was broken. The Resolute was battered but victorious. Back on Terra 5, news spread quickly. The small human ship had stopped an Empire's greatest fleet. On the Resolute, Marcus allowed himself a rare smile. This is only the beginning, he said quietly. The galaxy will know that humans never give up.